So there's potential and costly property damage. There's the potential of liabilities. If your pipe bursts and damages your tenant's property, now you're responsible for that. And then unhappy tenants. Not only could the tenant suffer water damage from frozen pipes, but if it's a heating system issue or something like that, now you have to put them in a hotel under reasonable accommodation. Hey, what's up, all of my real estate peeps? This is Brian Lucier with another episode of the Why Not Real Estate Podcast Golden Nuggets, where we will explain or unpack some tip, tactic, or technique that you can put in your rental property manager, investor tool belt to make you a more successful landlord, entrepreneur, or rental property manager. Well, here we are in New England. We've already had our first freeze. It is now October 13th, so happy Monday. And this will be out in a couple of weeks, but we're going to review today how to winterize your rental properties. Now, I've been doing this 25 years, and winter is always a crapshoot. We never know what's going to happen. We can't predict the weather. We don't know how much snow we're going to get. We don't know when it's going to freeze, but we do know that winter is coming. So with this episode, I'm hoping you can take some tips and tactics and make yourself a checklist and go through your rental properties to prevent you from being caught in the winter freeze. So why do this? Well, in the wintertime in New England, it's difficult because we have snow, we have ice removal, we have freezing temperatures that can wreak havoc on your plumbing and your heating systems here in New England. So we got to be proactive. Hopefully throughout the year, you've been keeping up on your maintenance requests so you don't have a lot of backed up work orders for repairs going into the winter season. So the first thing I would say is, here it is October, get your maintenance under control. Those work orders that have been sitting around, get them done, get them out of the way so you can be prepared for the emergencies that are going to come from winter. So we're going to cover, why is winter maintenance important? I think we've already touched some of that. What should I do before starting my winter prep? We've touched on that a little bit, getting your maintenance done. How do I winterize my property's exterior? And then how do I winterize my property's interior? So just to cap up, why is winter maintenance important? This can be costly. You can get that call on a weekend or late at night when temperatures drop that the water isn't moving through the pipes in the unit, which means now you have frozen pipes. Having a system in place where you can be notified immediately is critical, because if this goes on all night and then in the morning, now more frozen pipes, that could be a problem. So here's the issue with a frozen pipe. When a pipe freezes, ice is going to form inside the pipe. Now, everybody knows ice expands. So it's going to expand that pipe, and hopefully the pipe doesn't burst. You're not going to find out until you thaw out the ice, because then when the water flow starts to flow through that pipe again, now you find out you have problems. So the first thing, why is it important? If you get that call saying, hey, water is starting to trickle through my pipe, or no cold water is coming out of the pipe, that's usually the first thing. Or even worse, no hot water is coming through. Now you already know you have a problem, so you have to act quickly. So there's potential and costly property damage. There's the potential of liabilities. If your pipe bursts and damages your tenant's property, now you're responsible for that. And then unhappy tenants. Not only could the tenant suffer water damage from frozen pipes, but if it's a heating system issue or something like that, now you have to put them in a hotel under reasonable accommodation. So it's really important to get ahead of this and have a plan. And that's why we're going to do all this. Here are some tips before starting your winter home prep. Before diving headfirst, the best thing you can do, like I said, is keep up on your property maintenance. And it's challenging at times to stay ahead of all this, but it's going to be more challenging when there's 3 feet of snow on the ground and all the plumbers are out on no heat calls and you can't get anybody licensed and insured to come to your property. So think ahead. First thing you can do is stock up by keeping essential supplies on hand. Definitely, you want to go to Home Depot or your blue box store or orange box store or wherever you get it. And what we do every year, we try to do this now, is get a skid of ice melt because we don't want to be stuck in an emergency. Yeah, our properties we're going to have professionally snow removed and plowed anyways, but on that nightly freeze over, when we get that call, we want to be able to show up in the morning with ice melt. So some of the things you can do, and really good idea, we'll cover some of these, is insulating the pipes in your outdoor spigots. This all happens in your attic spaces or your basements or exterior walls. In New England, you really want to be careful and take note if you have plumbing lines going up and down exterior walls, make sure that those are insulated. In a lot of these older properties, it's balloon insulation, which means it's all air. So anything you can do to reduce drafts so cold air doesn't get in there. Again, sealing windows and doors, go through. I mean, we were just at an office building a couple weeks ago, and I noticed a gap in their office door about 1.5 inches above their office. They had just moved into that office, but when I came back and told my property manager about it, she was like shocked. So they're gonna find out very quickly that that's something that they should address now. Sealing windows and doors. Cleaning out gutters and downspouts, we'll go into that in detail, but that's definitely something you got to do. Having snow removal and getting other debris out of the path for snow removal. Inspecting your roof and chimney, that's critical. We're going to talk about that. Improving the outdoor landscaping. These are things that you can do preventively. And then absolutely something you want to have on hand, get like a dozen different thermal couplings. I say a dozen for us because most of the time, if we've got those gas parlor heaters, for some reason, these thermal couplings just go out and they're only like 20, 25 bucks. But in the middle of a snowstorm, to go out and get all that while there's no heat and everything, it's a pain in the butt. So our guys, I think there's two different kinds, and a thermal coupling is a thermal coupling, but it's the length of the copper wire that goes with it. I think they come in 6 feet or 12 feet. And depending on your heating system, you may have to wrap it around and do some creative things with it. So definitely keep some of those in your toolbox and get those now. So some winter safety tips. Talk to your tenants. Have evacuation strategies, maybe even post something on the building. If there's an emergency, put like a floor plan with arrows and charts, red arrows or whatever, and let them know the best way to evacuate the property in emergency. Let them know where the shutoff valves are for the water. That can save you so much trouble. When you get a no heat call, the first thing my guys are trained to do is walk the tenants through, go down to the basement and shut off the water valves. Yeah, it'll be an inconvenience for a couple of hours until we can get over there and start to thaw out the pipes, but it could save you thousands of dollars and days of having to put your tenants in an apartment or a hotel or motel. And let the tenants know your best practices for snow removal. Like at one of our buildings, they have to come straight down the driveway the first pass. So we don't want anyone to park their vehicle there during a snowstorm because that's the one spot that they can come down the driveway to clear that out. Make sure you communicate this with your tenants. If you can implement tandem parking to expedite snow removal, tandem parking is one car in front of the other. So if you have the space, have them, tandem park as much as possible so it's easier for the snow removal. These are really good ideas. Keep a steady supply, maybe a half dozen of portable temporary space heaters. These are for your weekend emergencies and for the thawing of frozen pipes. So if we get a call and someone's kitchen or bathroom is frozen up, we can open up the cabinet doors, put the space heater under there, and start to thaw out the pipes while we're tracing back to see where it's really frozen. And that's another good idea. If there's going to be a freeze overnight, we use property management software, so it's pretty easy to communicate with our tenants, but we can send them out like a monthly reminder during nights that we know we're going to have a freeze to keep the heat up and open up the cabinet doors underneath the plumbing where your kitchen, bathroom, the sinks are, where the plumbing is. If you open those up so the heat from the apartment can actually get in under the apartment. Another good tip and idea is if you know it's going to freeze, to leave the spigots on just a slight trickle or a drip. Honestly, a couple extra dollars in your water bill as preventive maintenance instead of having a frozen pipe that'll cost you thousands. It's a good idea. So communicating with the tenants is always a good idea. Other things you should have a supply of water. If you can, in a couple of the basements of your rental properties, get some of the 5-gallon Home Depot buckets or whatever 5-gallon you have, and get them filled up with water. These will come in handy in an emergency. If a tenant can't flush the toilet, they can take these 5 gallons, dump them into the reservoir of a toilet, and at least be able to get a couple of flushes out during an emergency. Not something you really want to think about having your morning coffee, but after your morning coffee, it's definitely something you're going to think about. So don't leave your tenants in the dark. Communicate. If something goes wrong, we have an emergency 24-hour hotline number that they can call. Get in. We'll talk about inspecting properties in a couple minutes. So let's jump ahead to winterizing your property on the exterior, cleaning the gutters. This is absolutely one of the most overlooked things that we see. And it's small money to save you big repairs. We just took on a new property and I've notified the landlord that they have a garden growing in their gutters, which literally they have gutters and there's weeds growing out of the gutter. So these things haven't been cleaned in years. So yeah, it's not pretty to look at, but why is that dangerous in the winter? Well, because ice and snow can accumulate in these gutters. And if you don't have a proper drain flow, ice and snow is going to get in there. And then when it starts to melt, what's going to happen? It's not going to flow away from your building. So this is going to create ice and other damage right at the property where the walkways are. Particularly if snowfall occurs, the snow is going to collect, gradually melt. And if your gutters are responsible for draining the water and remnants away from your property and siding, that's not going to happen. Worse, they can get filled with ice, become too heavy, actually fall and hurt someone. That's bad. Then when the water freezes and it's not able to flow, you'll see a lot of times from a side view, here's the gutter, and there'll be a mound of snow where the gutter is, and then it'll just back up on the roof. This is going to create an ice dam, and ice dams are really dangerous because that's going to affect the inside of your property. So if you don't have the proper ventilation in your roof, ice dams can cause rot to your roof, rot and moisture inside without ventilation. What happens with water and no ventilation? You get mold, and it's just a bad idea. So spend a couple $100, clean out your gutters. What do? You remove the debris, the leaves, the twigs that accumulated. Inspect the gutters for any signs of damage, line cracks, or rust to ensure they're securely attached to the property. Check the downspouts for blockage and leaks. And if you find an obstruction, use a garden hose now to flush it out to ensure proper drainage. And then if you're just not sure if it's too high up, consult a professional gutter drain cleaner if you encounter significant damages or blockages that can't be resolved through cleaning. The next, we want to inspect our roof. Obviously, just like your gutters, you should go through your roof and make sure that they're clean, don't have any broken or cracked shingles, because snow load, and as it starts to melt, that's going to be water that melts and comes down through your roof. And this, you can't fix a roof in the middle of the winter. So it's a really good idea to have it checked out before we start getting snow or ice or frost. Have somebody go up there. Maybe you can just do a temporary repair to get you through the winter if you have a bigger problem. But during the inspection, I mean, if nothing else, just have a roofer come out and prepare an inspection for you. They're going to find areas, maybe you've got gutter drain sprouts in between, like a V in the roof or something like that. Simple stuff for a couple $100 you might be able to fix now. That'll save you thousands going through the winter. Next, your landscaping. Okay, if you've got bushes that are overgrown near walkways or impeding handrails, anything, just walk through your property and envision everything covered with snow and ice and look for the potential problems. Cut back trees from your roof lines, because if we get a heavy ice storm, I've seen whole trees just come right down. It's been a long time, but we had a tree branch come down right on a tenant's car. And yeah, we had insurance and we were able to resolve all that. But take the preventive stuff that you can do now. If you see overhanging branches over the parking lots or walkways or the roofs of your property, get those cut back. They also make highways for vermin like squirrels who are going to be looking for warmer places. They'll try to get into your attics and they'll just run right up these branches and try to get into your building. So it's a good idea, both high and low. Take care of your landscaping, get stuff out of the way where you're planning on putting your snow removal. And if you have to, check with your property neighbor. Just talk to them if there's a tree that's encroaching or something like that, limbs. You never know what's going to happen with harsh weather, so do what you can. So not all of our properties have sprinkler systems, but you've seen them in the bigger complexes. First thing in the morning, they'll sprinkler the water beds and the lawn, and it's nice. It's a nice feature in a larger property. But in the wintertime, you got to winterize them. So that means having a professional come out with a compressor, blowing out all the lines. Good idea to remove the heads of these sprinklers and just set them aside until springtime. You can put a little stopper in there because I don't know how many times snow plows get a little ambitious and take out your sprinkler heads. And now instead of just installing what was there, you're having to replace what was there and other potential damage. Your pipes can freeze up in your property and as well in your sprinkler system. So it's a good idea. Just drain them out before the really cold temperature hits. Another good idea is to enhance your outdoor lighting. We love to have dusk to dawn motion detectors on all of our properties. So if you pull up and you're carrying a baby or groceries, even inside the hallways, interior and out exterior. I love motion detector lighting because it's safe. You don't have to turn it on. It keeps people from approaching the property that you don't want at the property. And it's a good idea for your tenants. When they get out of the car and start to move around, boom, the lights come on right away. And during the winter time, when there's ice and snow on the ground, you definitely want to do that. And it also improves your property's curb appeal. It's a nice safety feature, safety precaution for your tenants so they can navigate the grounds without any obstacles, even on the darkest winter nights. So they're likely to stick around if they feel safe in the property as well. The next we want to talk about is your snow and ice removal strategies. We have to do this every year. We're already doing it. We have, oh my goodness, I think over 30 or 40 properties. We manage upwards of 300 plus units, and it's always a challenge for us. Every year, we want to go out and get snow bid and snow plow removals. They have to do the plowing, the shoveling, and the salting. That's part of the contract. They have to be able to do all three. And once we get that all lined up, we have to get everything approved with the landlords and the property owners. And we need to communicate what the strategy is at each building. Like I said previously, if there's that one driveway, they got to come down and hit that lane first. Everybody in the property needs to know that. So it's a little bit of extra work to let everybody know in advance, but it's a lot easier to let them know in advance than in the middle of a snowstorm when somebody's car is blocking the path for snow removal. Another good idea before you set your snow plan in action is to check with your local and state laws on snow removal. For example, we had one property that was in the downtown municipal area of a city. And by the municipality laws of that city, because it was a business district, all of the sidewalks for the street were the responsibility of the property owner. So you need to know that because you don't want to be getting a fine from the city when there's 4 feet of snow and it's already frozen rock hard. So think about that. If you're in a more rural area, maybe it's not a big deal, but you definitely need to know your state and local laws on snow removal. Rule of thumb is when there is ice or snow, it is the property owner's responsibility to clear all common egresses all the way down to the surface to be free of snow and ice. Just stick with that as your baseline, and you should be okay. Now we're going to focus on winterizing your property's interior. So we've talked about the roofs, the landscaping. We didn't talk about chimneys, but we'll probably come back to that. So let's talk about the inside systems. Obviously September 15th is the beginning of heating season. So you previously, before seeing this, should have already gone through all of your heating systems, making sure that they're adequate and working. It's a good idea if you've got forced hot water. Take an afternoon and just go through and bleed all the lines for the system, get all the air out now so everything's running efficiently. That's a good idea. Your HVAC systems, have those checked out as well. And check your thermostats. A lot of our thermostats have batteries, and I can't tell you how many times we get the call saying, hey, I have no heat. And then we dispatch and it's two AAA batteries we just need to pop in, and then everything's up and working. So it's a good idea. Just get through, replace air filters if you have furnaces, examine the ductwork, make sure it's not leaking, test the thermostat, and try to identify any issues before it becomes a full-blown problem during a winter and emergency. The next thing we can do is add extra insulation. A good idea is to go into the basement with a flashlight and shut off the lights. And what you're looking for, you're going to go through the entire perimeter of that basement and you're looking for daylight. Any areas, and this happens sometimes, older houses will settle and you may see daylight coming through, or cement or mortar may give out. And now's the time to go through where you can do the maintenance, maybe take a couple hours, mortar it up, even some of the sill areas. These are also good to seal up. Sometimes you can use that spray foam. I'm not a huge fan of the spray foam because it's messy and it gets everywhere. But if you prep the area and do it right and keep it clean and do a nice unified, uniform job, I'm okay with it. But you want to make sure just walking around that entire basement that you don't see daylight. Add extra insulation where you need to, especially along the footings of the property. That's where, drafts are going to come in. And just do the best you can. A little extra insulation will probably keep your pipes from freezing and reduce the airflow or air leaks around the property. That's a good idea. The next we're going to look at is insulating the plumbing and the pipes. We mentioned a little while ago that if the water stops running, it's because possibly there's ice forming in one of the pipes, which obstructing the flow. So it's a good idea. Both your cold pipes and your hot water lines, cold and hot water lines, insulate them. You can go down to any of the big box stores and just get this styrofoam or foam insulation and just pop it up, maybe a little duct tape to hold it in place. And it's bendable, so you can get creative and do the best you can to cover the pipes, especially if they're near exterior windows or the exterior of the properties. Insulating those pipes is critical, especially in unheated areas. Um, Basements can be nice if you have a furnace in the basement because that'll generate heat. But if you have these heat and hot water on demand systems, those do not generate heats. So when those get installed, I like to put them inside the unit, but then that leaves no heat in the basement. It's a good idea to maybe have a thermostat with maybe an electric baseboard or something like that, set at 55 degrees in your basements. Probably the cheapest way out is to do an electric baseboard, but if you do have a furnace in the basement, make sure it's free and clear from obstructions so that heat can circulate around, and just insulate the best you can the pipes, the cold and hot water lines. Also, if you've got forced hot air systems, you can get that foil vent tape and just make sure, do an inspection, make sure that they're sealed up pretty good. Like some people use duct tape and it's called duct tape and that's what they use it for, but it wears down over time. I like the aluminum foil tape for sealing up these air ducts or heating ducts. It lasts longer and it's a stronger, more durable product. Next, we want to test the fire alarms. October is fire prevention month, and typically on daylight savings time, twice a year, you want to check your smoke detectors and CO detectors anyways. So just remember when the clocks move forward or clocks move back, that's the time to set up your inspections, to go through your properties, check for CO detectors, check for your smoke detectors, heat detectors in common areas or garages, and just go through and make sure everything's working properly. It only takes a couple of minutes, and potential danger of a carbon monoxide in the winter. I hate to say it, but ventilation, snow can get up where you don't have proper ventilation from like a dryer vent or something like that. And CO2 or any other type of exhaust can get clogged or frozen with ice. So you definitely want to make sure that your CO2 detectors are working and functioning. We're going to go back and talk about cleaning the chimney. Not a lot of your rentals have chimneys, so this is kind of just a little bonus thing I'm going to throw in there. If your chimneys in your rentals are ornamentation only and you have in your lease to not use the fireplace, you still want to make you sure that you're going in there and making sure that they're properly insulated so you don't have drafts coming down or squirrels or chipmunks looking for a warm place to live coming down. So you want to go in, you want to check the flue, make sure it's aligned, make sure it's shut, the damper is shut. And then I like mineral wool, or you call it Roxol, I believe that's the brand name, and stuff a few battens of that. And they've got like wire that you can use to hold it up into place, and just make sure it's airtight. And if you are using the chimney, make sure it's cleaned because creosote and soot and other types of things can build up in there and actually create chimney fires, which, man, that can spread, create carbon monoxide poisoning, fire-related risks that you don't want to have to deal with, having to put families that, through no fault of their own, a fire happens and now they're in a hotel that you're paying for and they've lost everything. So spend a couple bucks, go through the chimney, clean it out, especially if it's going to be used. And if it's used for a furnace, not a fireplace, same rules apply. You want to have it inspected, those little chimney vents that you can put on top to keep stuff from falling down there. That's a good idea too. We didn't talk about it on the roof, so I'm going to add this one in. I just remembered it and I'm glad I did. For flat roofs, a lot of these pitch inward to have a drain that go out. So if water accumulates, it'll drain down to the center of that roof. They're pitched that way, so you don't have water buildup on top of your roofs. Take 15 minutes, find that crawl space, get up on that flat roof. It's autumn. The leaves are going to fall. 5 or 10 minutes up on the roof with a broom, just sweep all those leaves off of the roof, because what will happen is all those leaves will accumulate at that drain when it rains, and it'll clog your drain and it won't allow water to get off of your roof. So what's going to happen? Water is going to build up. It's extra added weight. Snow, if that melts, I mean, I've seen it happen, not at any of our properties, but enough ice buildup has actually happened where roofs have caved in. And that's really, I mean, it's 15 minutes with a broom of prevention. It costs you nothing, but it's a good idea now that the leaves are coming down at the beginning of the leaf season. Get up there with a broom, sweep out those drains, make sure that they're free and clear, make sure that they have a coverage so leaves aren't just going down the spout. That's a huge problem. And then just at the end of the season, before we start getting that snow fly, get up there again one more time and just sweep them out and get them clear. Why? Because if this water accumulates, yeah, it can ruin your roof. It can get into your third floor units, create a lot of water damage. And you all know what happens if it's 3 stories and water's coming in through the roof. It's going to hit the third floor. If it's bad, it'll hit the second floor. And if it's really bad, it'll hit the first floor. So that 15 minutes with a broom on the roof could be preventive of thousands and thousands of dollars worth of damage. So it's a good idea. Get up there, check it out. We've covered a lot of material on this podcast, and I hope that you found it useful. This is Winterizing, your rentals for the winter season. And this is Brian Lucier from the Why Not Real Estate Podcast signing off, and we'll see you on the next one.